On our broadcast tonight, the Canadian GP is set to be cancelled as Turkey stands by to replace it. The Miami GP resolution passes a vote despite the local resident opposition, and the Toronto contingency plan will most likely be a doubleheader event. Good evening. This year's Canadian Grand Prix looks set to be cancelled despite Formula One insisting that it is still in discussion with the promoter. The event, scheduled for June 11th through 13th, the weekend after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix as the second part of a flyaway doubleheader, has been in doubt for some time. Turkey, which held a race at short notice in 2020 and is conveniently located on the freight route home from Azerbaijan, is waiting in reserve as a replacement. On Thursday, Radio Canada reported that the Montreal race had been cancelled for public health reasons, noting that there are concerns over the risks associated with F1 visitors mixing with the local circuit staff and volunteers. There are also financial issues related to the possibility of the race being run behind closed doors and thus with no spectator income. Canada faces tight COVID-19 restrictions with quarantines for people arriving in the country. Because the track is a semi-permanent venue, work on preparing it has to start several weeks in advance, and thus a decision has to be made earlier than would be the case for other venues. F1 boss Stefano Domenicali wrote to the Canadian government last month asking for quarantine exemptions while explaining that the measures that F1 has taken for other races and which could potentially be applied for Montreal. One plan was to hold the event behind closed doors with tight bubble restrictions for teams and other personnel from overseas. Last year's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which saw the entire paddock travel from Bahrain on charter flights and stay in reserved hotels, was cited as an example. However, repeating that exercise in full, which would have involved Montreal hotel staff and circuit volunteers in quarantine ahead of the race weekend, is not considered as practical. Earlier this week, Quebec Director of Public Health, Dr. Horacio Arruda, suggested that all options were under discussion. The IndyCar race in Toronto, Ontario is in severe jeopardy too, given that it is set for mid-July, but being a street course requires some 30 days to build. Plans for the Miami Grand Prix to join the Formula One calendar in 2022 took a step forward when city commissioners voted in favor of a new resolution despite opposition from local activists. The new mayor of Miami Gardens, Rodney Harris, sponsored the fresh bid to host the event. On Wednesday night, city commissioners heard nearly 2 hours of complaints from local residents who opposed the plans for a race in their community before voting in favor of going ahead with the project. The resolution will lead to a memorandum of understanding between the city, the Miami Dolphins organization, and Formula One to hold the race on a purpose-built circuit around the Hard Rock Stadium, home of the Dolphins NFL team. Residents activist leader Brenda Martin-Providence told WSVN, "Our city council has flip-flopped us, and it made us angry. They decided to go into negotiations, and we just want them to know nothing with us has changed. We just don't want it in our neighborhood." The new plan pledges $5 million to fund community benefits projects and businesses in the city, and a STEM program for local children that F1 will implement. Miami Gardens is a city 16 miles north of Miami, which includes the Hard Rock Stadium that is primarily used by the Dolphins. Both are owned by real estate billionaire Stephen Ross, who signed a deal in 2019 with F1 to promote the race. Ross's previous efforts have been derailed by opposition from local residents, who in October launched a civil rights lawsuit against Miami-Dade County, the Dolphins organization, and F1 for racial discrimination. Miami Gardens, home to 113,000 residents, is a majority African American city. The track layout has already been altered to appease locals, as it was redesigned to avoid using 199th Street, meaning the arterial route can be kept open throughout the race weekend. The Dolphins organization has also pledged to erect nose mitigation barriers and monitor air quality and noise throughout the event. Initial plans in 2017 to host the event on the streets of the city of Miami were thwarted by a local residents group, which quashed the downtown bid in early 2019 on the grounds of noise pollution and the disruption it would cause. Penske Entertainment CEO Mark Miles says replacing IndyCar's In Jeopardy Toronto race would likely involve turning an extant round into a doubleheader rather than filling the Canadian city slot on the schedule. Toronto is currently set to be the 11th round of the 2021 NTT IndyCar Series season on July 9th through 11th, but travel restrictions to Canada as the country tackles its third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic have cast doubt on a highly popular event which was cancelled last year too. Not only does a temporary street course typically take 30 to 40 days to construct, it would be difficult for it to make financial sense for promoters Green Savory Racing Promotions if, as in St. Petersburg, Florida, the crowd is restricted to admit only 20,000 fans per day. Last year, to compensate for a rash of races that were canceled due to the pandemic, IndyCar was forced to run 5 events as doubleheaders. This year, there are just 2 planned for now: Detroit, which has been a doubleheader since 2013, and Texas Motor Speedway, which will hold 2 races next month to help compensate for Iowa being removed from the schedule, and Richmond Raceway's planned return after an 11-year hiatus being stillborn. Until last year, Toronto had fallen off the calendar just once since its inaugural event in 1986, when the 2008 race was canned due to the preseason Champ Car Indy Racing League reunification as IndyCar causing a date clash between the 2 planned schedules. Codemasters and EA have announced the first details for the F1 2021 video game, which will feature an all-new story mode and 3 new tracks. F1 2021 will be Codemasters' first edition of the annual title since its acquisition by EA was completed earlier this year and is set to be released on the 16th of July. The game will feature Imola, Portimao, and the new Jeddah Street Track, which will be available to all players as free post-launch content to allow gamers to complete the full 23-race schedule currently planned for F1 this year. The addition of Imola and Portimao comes after F1 2020 did not feature any of the new tracks that were added to the calendar in wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, leading to fan calls for their introduction for F1 2021. F1 2021 will also feature a new story mode called Breaking Point, which will see players take on an epic journey as they rise from Formula 2 into Formula 1. F1 2021 will be available on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X or S, making it the first F1 title available on the latest generation platforms, as well as on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Thomas Randall will make 3 wildcard starts for Tickford Racing at Supercars Sprint Rounds this season. Randall, who spent the past year battling testicular cancer, has long been expected to make a number of wildcard starts this season as part of a multi-year deal he inked with the Ford squad last season. It's now confirmed that he'll take part in 3 sprint rounds in a Tickford Mustang carrying backing from Castrol. Randall will make his first start for the season at the Bend next month, which will mark his second appearance at the South Australian circuit following his debut wildcard back in 2019. He'll return for the Darwin Triple Crown in June and round out the wildcard program with the Perth Super Night in September. Randall will then team up with one of the full-time Tickford drivers for the Bathurst 1000. Before heading to the Bend for his first wildcard start, Randall will have a shot at winning the 2021 Australian Drivers' Championship. He sits 40 points behind Team BRM teammate Joey Mawson heading into the final round at Sydney Motorsport Park in just over a fortnight. The NTT IndyCar Series has announced a new round of international broadcast partnerships today that extends its global reach. Following last week's revelation of renewed international partners, IndyCar has revealed new broadcasters for IndyCar action in various countries within Europe, Asia, and South America. Sport 1 will carry IndyCar action in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland on the Sport 1 Plus premium service platform, with selected highlights on Sport 1. Arena 4 in Hungary and Sport Extra in Romania New for 2020 will continue their coverage for 2021. New for 2020, but continuing their coverage while new for 2021 is Eurosport for Poland and the Indian subcontinent, along with TV arena sport for Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, North Macedonia, and Slovenia. DAZN joins the 2021 lineup for coverage of the series in Italy, and its global streaming service will deliver IndyCar action to another 60 countries in Europe, Asia, Australasia, the Caribbean, South and Central America, North Africa, and the Middle East. In Asia, Fox Sports will ensure IndyCar can be seen in more than a dozen countries, including mainland China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, South Korea, and, surprisingly, North Korea. TV Cultura will provide coverage for Brazil, a country whose TV coverage was crucial to encouraging sponsorship opportunities for IndyCar drivers at the turn of this century and helped ensure regular interest in hosting events. Of the 34 drivers expected to compete in at least one IndyCar race this season, 22 will be international. Combined with renewals and existing broadcast partnerships, 209 countries will be represented among 26 worldwide networks. Three-time British touring car champion Matt Neal is weighing up a foray into rallycross this year following a test in an electric supercar at Liddon Hill on Wednesday. The 53-year-old confirmed last month that he will take a sabbatical from driving in the BTCC this year. The first time since 2001, the veteran tin-top driver won't be a full-time entrant in the series. While Neal's family-owned Team Dynamic squad will field its Honda Civic Type Rs for Gordon Shedden and Dan Rowbottom in the BTCC, Neal skipped the team's preseason knockhill test to get his first taste of rallycross machinery. With the British Rallycross Championship Five Nations Trophy adopting electric cars developed by Austrian firm Stard into its headline supercar category this season, Neal joined British Olympic hero Chris Hoy and World Rallycross Championship driver Liam Duran, among others, in testing a four-wheel drive 450 kilowatt Ford Fiesta ERX at the Kent venue. Formula One plans to unleash 6 new graphics over the course of this season in a bid to bring more information to fans. As part of the partnership with cloud platform Amazon Web Services, F1 has rolled out a number of statistics and graphics over the recent years, but their presence has divided opinion among fans. While some have liked the added details and predictive nature of the information, others have scoffed at their accuracy or the way they take the drama out of the live action. The latest additions mean there will be a total of 18 graphics on offer by the end of 2021. From this weekend's Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, there will be a new braking performance graphic, which will show the varying style of braking each driver shows over the course of a lap. However, the data will examine how late each driver is braking and how their apex speed varies as they deal with the corners. The AWS graphics use machine learning and AI tools to interpret and analyze data that is produced from 300 sensors that run on each F1 car. And Williams Formula One reserve Jack Aitken's 2021 GT World Challenge Europe campaign with the Emile Frey Lamborghini squad was motivated by a desire to broaden his skill set as a driver. Aitken, who will contest both the Endurance and Sprint Cup legs of the series aboard a Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, explained that there is a lot to be learned by doing something a bit different. The 25-year-old will make his GT racing debut in the weekend's opening round of the Endurance Cup segment at the GTWCE at Monza. He is sharing one of the 3 Emile Frey Lamborghinis entered in this year's GTWCE in all 10 events with Finn Constantopoulos. Frenchman Arthur Rogier will join them for the 5 endurance events, which will include the Spa 24 Hours in July. Aitken also explained that saw it as important as he continues to race in 2021 alongside his F1 commitments at Williams, with which he made his Grand Prix debut in last year's Sakir Grand Prix. And that is your MDM World Racing News tonight for this Thursday, April 5th, 15th, 2021. I'm Matthew Merlino for the MDM YouTube channel in Montvale. Good night.